At this time, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, and let's give a very warm Burbank welcome to Diane C. from Somerset, New Jersey. Diane?
I keep thinking of that song, I'm going back to Cali. I have to take this off because I'm at the age now where I flash, I don't flash, I flash, I don't flash. Let me thank Laura and the committee for inviting me here, and for Glenn Kay. I know he's not here, but he'll hear this when he plays the tape back. Glenn had taped me a few years ago when I spoke at a convention in New York. So I wanted to thank them first and thank you for your kindness and hospitality. So here I am. Let me just take a deep breath for a sec. Okay. I grew up in Brooklyn. Anybody know where that is? Brooklyn, New York. Holla, holla, holla. And I am the daughter, Irish Catholic. That will be important, as you see, as I kind of weave that through the story. You get it. My dad worked for the sanitation. He was a son of 6 brothers and sisters. They grew up through the Depression. He had been in both wars, so he wasn't old enough to go through one and not the other, so he had that sort of as a history. And at that point, when you went to the war, you were there one day and then you were home the next, so there really wasn't any debriefing. So, you know, the fact that someone would push him in the street and he couldn't shoot him was probably a really big awakening for him. So I am the 3rd child, so I have an older brother, Frank. I have another brother, Kevin, and then myself, a miscarriage, and my younger sister, Teresa, and that was all within 5 years. So we grew up. We weren't very wealthy. Again, my dad was the only person who was working. He worked for the sanitation, so very blue collar. I remember my earliest memories of growing up, and the reason I go back so far is you'll see as I sort of roll it forward, I guess the different roles that people played in our family and my role specifically. So I'll throw this out there. I come from an alcoholic family. My father was sober. My older brother was sober. And my sister is sober. My mom's been in Al-Anon for countless number of years. She works her own program. And we'll leave it at that. My earliest memories, though, it's interesting because I believe in the 2nd grade that I knew that there was something different about me because I always had crushes on my brother's girlfriends. And so intuitively I knew that there was a problem with that, but whatever, it is what it is. And the next thing that I'll say is not to sort of put a downer on everything, but again, you'll see as time sort of moves forward what plan my higher power had for me. So some things that may sound a little like Debbie Downer, really not so much, because you'll see how important it becomes as I get older. So in, I believe, the 4th grade, I was incested by my brother. And the reason that I say that is because imagine the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade when everyone is sort of experiencing sort of, you know, in New York we would go to Rye Beach where everyone hung out and you kissed in the love tunnel. Yeah, not so much. Because I had already been past that. So, you know, that feeling of not fitting in had already started to happen. So 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, I'm now ballooning to probably 150 pounds, and I'm just not fitting in. I know that I don't want to date the boys. I know that I've already experienced sexual encounters, so I know that that's not something that is going to surprise me, and so I don't know how to fit in. But then I found basketball. Now, a 150-pound kid playing basketball is very good. And I was playing when there were six kids on a team, all right, and this was before Title IX. And I was in a very progressive high school, by the time I got to high school, I probably had played basketball for 2 years. I was in a very progressive school, and they offered what they called honors gym. And the gym outfits were that thing with the pinny, the skirt at the bottom. Very stylish. And I would go to school at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we would have this honor gym class, which they would teach you how to teach. So again, think about this. This is 1972. Again, no Title IX yet, and the doctor of the program in the high school that I was in was gearing you to learn how to teach. So I'm going to school, and now I'm starting to fit in because I'm a good athlete, right? And for whatever reason, my family supported it because my brothers certainly were not allowed to do anything other than go to school, come home, and go to work. And so just the fact that I was given the ability to do this was amazing. My dad, rageaholic, very angry. If you did something wrong, you just couldn't go out for the summer. It's not a problem. And if he was angry, you had to, though, go up to him at night and kiss him goodnight. Like, that's the sadistic type of, turn your face, but you have to do it because that's what they demanded. So I don't really remember my mom in a lot of this, other than the fact that every once in a while she would freak out and say something ridiculous, like she'd call and say, I want you to make this rack of lamb. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. And she said, well, figure it out. Okay. And I did. Typical ACOA. So now I'm in high school, I'm playing ball, and I meet this woman. And we start hanging out. She comes with me to go babysitting, as you do. And we kiss. And while I was enjoying the kiss, when I got home, I intuitively knew, once again, this is not supposed to have happened. And I wrote her a note the next day, and I said, we can't do this. I can't see you anymore. And I think I met her probably at lunch. I was like, no, I was just kidding. But we knew we kind of had to keep it on the down low. So we kept it on the down low. And I was, at this point, probably a junior in high school. And she was a senior, and she went off to a community college, and I went to be a senior, and then I went off to the same community college because no one in my family went to college. It's not like today where you take the kids to school and you go visit the universities, not so much. And the only reason I believe that I did get to go was because my parents got to keep my financial aid, you know what I mean? So it was a big check for them. And let me just segue a little with this. My dad's idea, and when you look back as an adult, like my dad's idea of taking care of you was, we'll give you the big pork chop, which the only thing that meant was he was keeping the center cut for himself, right? And when I look back, I was like, really? So there was no touching, Irish Catholic, as I said, there was no touching. I was always very hesitant. The situation with my brother was something that I took responsibility for. And again, we'll deal with that later on. But always, now I'm starting to feel shame. Now I'm starting not to like my body. I now weigh 180 pounds as a sophomore in high school. But again, I'm a good athlete. So I'm playing volleyball and then basketball and then softball. And now I'm starting to fit in with the athletes. The only little problem was this woman, but whatever. But we kept that on the down low. So fast forward, I'm graduating high school. I almost get the award for Athlete of the Year, but my mother decides at the last minute that I should not participate in this thing. And she's like, well, screw them. You don't need to do that. And so I didn't get the award. I know. Anyway, so fast forward, I go to this community college, and my brother Kevin had gotten left back in the first grade, and so he and I were in Kingsborough at the same time. And I confide in him, no, actually it was my older brother Frank. It was Kevin. I confide in Kevin that I'm seeing this woman, and I was kind of excited. I didn't really know what it was, but I knew that I wanted to tell him. So I tell Kevin. And I think the next day I got home and I walked into my house and I saw the look on my parents' face and I went, this is so not good. And my mother said, you're like dogs licking each other. And I was like, you're watching? And this is 1976, so it's not all, be gay, experiment, and this is really cool. This is not cool, right? And I'm in Brooklyn. My dad took me upstairs and told me about how he smoked pot in the Army. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, maybe he was I didn't get the point, but I was like, whatever. He wasn't pissed, so I was really happy about that. So here's the sad part of the story. They take me out of school. Now I'm still 180 pounds. They take me out of school. They make me go see a priest. And the priest, higher power, has continually worked through my life. And the priest, I remember his name was Father Zona, basically said, you need to be what you need to be. And again, so what's this, 77 now? And so that wasn't good. So then I had to see Sister Beatrice, whatever her name was, and then go to see a therapist. And the therapist, at that point, I had to get a job, so I got a job as a bank teller. And you'll see why I keep focusing on my weight again as we move through this. It's going to be some summation, right? It's like, ooh, all the mysteries get resolved. So I go through, I get this job as a teller in a bank, and I'm separated from this woman. And now I'm 18 years old. And my mother says to me, is this what you're going to do for the rest of your life? Now, I didn't even know what that meant. Like, I didn't know what the rest of my life was. All I knew was that they were angry and I could not please them. I didn't know how to please them. So I break up with this woman. I don't see her anymore. I literally go to the city every day and come home. They moved me out of the bedroom with my sister. So if I didn't feel enough shame, let's just pile that on top. So now it's almost a surreal, like, bit of a movie where, I'm going to work every day. I have zero social skills. So this woman at the lunch table. Now, if you ever want to be abused, work as a teller in a bank, right? So I'm in the lunchroom. I'm probably emotionally 12 years old, right? If I'm 18 or 19 at the time. And this woman says to me, you're not supposed to wear short sleeves in the winter. And I was like, okay. Like, I didn't know that. I didn't know how to be. So I take the train every day back and forth. And at the end of the year, I realized that I had lost 50 pounds. So, and I was wearing the same clothing. And I said, I should write a book, right? Don't go to Weight Watchers, tell your parents you're gay, and you'll 50 pounds. So, I have to laugh at some of the stuff. You'll see why. Anyway, so at the end of the year, by the grace of God, because, the facts that they have about children, I think the highest rate of teen suicide is from children that are gay. The fact, again, that I did not kill myself during that year, because in my head, I could not please them. I tried to date men. It did not work. I was successful as a teller, but my life, I had no direction. I had nothing other than get up every day and try to please my mother. So by the grace of God, there was a teller there who was very nice to me, and again, the higher power working through the people around me. And she would take me to her home. I don't know where it was, because again, I was in Brooklyn, and she took me someplace where we got to see deer in the morning. I was like a fresh air kid. And so we did that. And so there was some kindness starting to come through outside of this very limited circle. I started writing poetry. I suck at it, but I did it anyway. It was like, roses are red, violets are blue. Why are you being so mean to me? I had this whole little drama going on. Anyway, so at the end of a year, I wake up, and again, by the grace of God, I am like, fuck this. I cannot do this anymore. And I said, Mom, Dad, I'm done. I'm getting back with this woman, and we're moving out. So I called the girl. We get back together. And then from that day forward, my parents were like, all right, cool. I'm like, da-da-da-da-da, for a year. Anyway, I lost weight, so that was cool. So we move out. I decide that I'm going to go back to school and finish my education. So now I'm in Brooklyn College. I'm playing ball again, so that, that little time, that break that I had in between, I didn't learn very much, right, other than the fact that I was now an out woman in college. Lots of fun. I started to meet other women, and this woman that I was dating went to the side, and I started dating another woman. Because the first woman drank a lot of beer, and I couldn't understand why she had to drink beer, and she liked the taste. And I said, well, drink one. Why do you have to drink 20? And so, have I mentioned that this is definitely a family disease? So I break up with her, but that's because I have this other woman. And so now we go off, and we're in a relationship. And, I'm now experimenting with smoking pot and eating huge bowls of Frosted Flakes. And I'm like, whoa. And she's drinking too. And I'm like, all right, well, that's okay. And then I get a job on Wall Street. My brother got me a job. And now I'm working from very early in the morning until very early at night. But I'm very good at this, and I'm moving up very quickly. And so this woman that was everything to me started becoming less to me, because now I was getting a lot of my needs met doing this job. And I was a trader. I ran a trading desk, so try that on if you're a COA. And so the second relationship, she started, of course, seeing someone else, because I wasn't giving her the amount of attention, because my needs were getting met somewhere else. And so that was devastating to me. We broke up. I said, well, if you're seeing someone else, I'm leaving, or you're leaving. One of us is leaving. And so she left, and I was shocked. And then again, this had nothing to do with me. It was all about this other woman. And so, I throw myself into my work. I'm now continuing to move up there, and I meet another woman in a bar. And I don't really like this woman, because she's not really as exciting. I like her sister. And the sister is, as you guessed it, a raging alcoholic. So we got along very nicely. And it was interesting to me, again, this girl from Brooklyn trying to be what she's not, right, this cool thing. This woman had a Latin background, so that was extremely exciting to this Irish Catholic girl. And, started teaching me things about how to be, this mature woman. So, of course, we start dating, and the drinking continues. And I continue to try to figure out how to get her to stop drinking. I didn't really care about the drinking. It was more about the people she was sleeping with that I had a problem with. And then disappearing for 2 or 3 days, or having us fly to Puerto Rico for vacation, and then she takes off for 3 days, and I'm in Bayamón, which is this place 3 hours outside of San Juan, with her mother, who doesn't speak English, sleeping under a tent. I'm like, this is a problem. So we come back, and my mother keeps saying to me, Diane, you might want to try Al-Anon. Let me back up a second. So my brother throws his second wife down the stairs, and they put him in jail. I say it funny because none of this is funny, but everyone has lived this, sort of, so it's not this shocking story. If I was telling this at work, they'd be like, your brother threw his wife down the stairs. I'm like, yeah, it happens. And so he goes to jail, and they he then goes very quickly into AA. So Frank is number one in the program. My dad came in not too long after him, and my mom started to go to Al-Anon. So, I kept calling my mother complaining about these people, and this woman specifically, and she's like, you should try Al-Anon. I'm like, I don't need Al-Anon. She just needs to stop sleeping with everybody. It's like, okay, honey. So I remember that I was in my car, and it was in Staten Island, and I saw her walking with this guy who was supposed to be her cousin, but now they're together. So I was like, I guess you're not cousins. It was never a real truth. Like, you couldn't figure out who all the players were. Not that that's insanity. So, but I'm in my car, and I'm headed for her. I'm gonna hit her. And then something in my head, and I now know that was my higher power, said, that's enough. And I called my mother, and I said, I need help. And I went to an Al-Anon meeting that night, and I think it was on the 4th step, and I was like, no clue what you're talking about. But what I did know was that when I left, I wasn't as angry or as afraid as when I walked in. I had no idea what people were saying. I just knew that I felt differently. And again, by the grace of God, I had a 2-week period off. I was living with a very good friend of mine. And so all I had to take care of was this one little room, the 3 or 4 outfits that I had, and going to meetings. And I would go every day, and my mom would take me. And again, the people would talk about whatever they talk about, but I inevitably felt better. So 2 weeks goes by. I'm now going to program, completely healed. This woman decides that she's going to go into AA, so she goes into AA. And I continue doing my program, and she's going into AA. And so probably 6 months later, we're living together again. And I decided that this is not healthy, that she's not staying sober. I don't have a sponsor yet, but I know that this is not healthy for me. And I say that I am going to move and get another apartment. Not 2 days later is she now engaged to a man, and they're going to get married. So I remember my dad coming to me and taking me by the hand. Now, this was not a very demonstrative man before he came into program. And he took me by the hand, and he said to me, I just want to tell you that she's going to get married. And it was to some guy in the program. And I remember falling to my knees, and my dad just holding my hand. And that was sort of, I think, my emotional bottom, and realizing that I was completely lost, but that the only thing that made me feel anything was when I went into the program. And so I got a sponsor, and I wasn't healed yet because I really wanted her girlfriend because she was much cuter, but she wasn't available, so I took the other one. And so the other one is Tony, and she said to me, we're going to meet every Friday at the diner, because in Brooklyn, you go to the diner after a meeting. And so we're going to meet every Friday, and we're going to talk. And I said, okay. And at that point, they started calling me Brooklyn Cool, because I was always cool. No matter what was going on, I could be in a tornado, and my hair looked good. And so she was like, all right, now they call me Jersey Cool. So, all right, Jersey Cool, we're going to meet once a week and whatever, because she could completely see through what was happening. And she said, okay, let's just talk. So we would sit and talk, and I would say, well, what would you say about a woman who would drive to Staten Island and sleep with someone in a neighborhood that you really should never have walked into because you could have been killed. And she said to me, I would say that that woman was living in her disease and was in a lot of pain. And I said, well, what would you say about a woman who blah, blah, blah? And she said, I would say that woman was acting in her disease and was in a lot of pain. And so this woman and I continued to meet. And finally, I would stop talking in the third person, and I could start to say that, well, this is what I did, and this is what I did. And sort of the basis of that was really all of the shame that I was feeling about not only the incest, about not only the things that I had done to get my needs met. Because I look at this disease and I say, I may not pick up a drink or a drug, but I have this disease. This has nothing to do with anybody else. If every relationship I was in was with an alcoholic, that has nothing to do with anybody else but my disease. And my disease rages every day. I have a favorite saying. It's like, thanks for sharing, not now, because the tape continually goes. It's like, woo, you suck, not now, not now. One of the things that really helped was going to open AA meetings, because I got to hear all of the stories. I got to understand that the very low self-esteem, big ego, that was me to a T. All the feelings of hate. It was how it manifested itself that was different, but it was the same disease. So I come into program. I am now single. I'm going to meetings. I'm going to open AA meetings. I'm going to straight meetings. I don't give a shit what it is. I'm just going to meetings. I had left school. I am now going back to school at night at that point. So I would go to work in the morning. I would take the bus, the subway home. I would go to Brooklyn College and not cheat, which was a big thing, because it was very easy for me still. And again, it's the same steps, the same process. Be honest to me, to who I am. Be honest to what's important to me. And then go to meetings at night. So it was sort of all about looking at Diane. When I got my first apartment, I didn't even know what I liked. I didn't know what furniture I liked. I knew what you liked. I knew how to read you so I could make it be what you wanted, but I didn't know how to do that for myself. So, and everything had to be perfect. My sponsor had stomach surgery, and when I went in for the surgery, she took everything out of the cabinets and put it on the counter just to make me nuts, because she knew I didn't want, there was nothing on my counters. And, when I look back and try to understand why, my brother said that's because our house was such a mess. That's the other thing of this disease for me, the beauty, is that my brother and sister remember everything. They could tell you what I wore every day. They could tell you. I don't remember really anything. And I think I told the story before. I was roller skating in the house, and I banged into the door. And my brother Frank's like, that's what you think happened? You were roller skating. Mommy got so pissed at you, she shoved you into the door, and that's how you cracked your head open. I was like, I really like my version a hell of a lot better. And so, when I look back at things, and so sometimes I check with them to say, hey, I don't know why I have this behavior. I don't know why I do this. And then sometimes they'll tell me that's because the house was a mess. There was never any order. And so a lot of the program for me is understanding, why do I do things? Why do I feel a certain way? And so by coming to the meetings and hearing other people and having people that know me and love me and come from a loving place to say, maybe you're pushing so hard because you're afraid of failing. Maybe your low self-esteem, your bad body image comes from X, Y, or Z. And let's go back to the incest for a second, because it's very important, and I never hear this at meetings. Whenever I have sex, I reenact that act. I have to make a very conscious effort to say that is not what's happening now. And I don't hear people say that, and it may make people uncomfortable, but for whatever reason, and I do know why it happened, because my niece, and this is here we'll start to catch up, right? So my sister has a daughter from her first marriage before she gets sober, and she meets a gentleman in program, and they have 2 beautiful children, and he starts to molest the older daughter. And so my 16-year-old niece calls me and says, "Aunt Diane, why did this happen to me?" And I said to her, "Honey, I don't know why it happened to you, but I'm going to help you get through it." So when you look at the higher power's plan for me, and I say, why do I have the knowledge that I have? Why do I have these experiences? What is his plan for me? Why am I here? You know, my wife is an amazing musician. She's a police officer. She's involved with the church. She walks on water. She parts the seas. And then there's me. And I said, okay. And then I heard, but you have a gift. You have the gift of hospitality. You have a gift to make people laugh. And maybe that's what your higher power's gift is for you. Maybe you can take some of these situations and let people for a second smile about it and have that and feel important. Maybe you make people feel important. I said, you know what? When Vicki called me and said, "Why did this happen to me?" and I was able to talk to her about it. She's now married. She's 28 years old. She has an amazing business, but I know what she goes through. You know, she's looking for her husband to cure everything for her, and I know she's going through the exact same things with him. And I'm able to gently say to her, whatever those voices are in your head, Vicki, remember, you're a beautiful woman. Remember that you're loved. Remember that there's a program you can go to whenever you want to, and that I'm there for you. So one thing that I think is important is when I came into program, the relationships that I forged were less about that insanity. Because trust me, I could walk into a room today of 1,000 people, sober people. If one alcoholic was in that room, I'd be like, bam, that's the person I want to be with. It doesn't matter. It does not change. At the end of the day, what has changed is my ability to understand what's healthy in a relationship, what's healthy in my behavior, and what I look for in someone else. So I had written a list. I wasn't in a relationship for a year and a half, and my sponsor had said to me, "I want you to go to work, and I don't want you to wear makeup." And I work with all men, so I walked in and they were like, "Are you sick?" And I said, and I said no. And what was that the lesson that she was trying to teach me was that I don't have to be all things to all people to be accepted, and that I had to learn to at least be okay with myself, or at least understand that I have a problem with that. You know, a lot of this for me is just being aware. I don't always have the tools, and you know, I know that I don't have to be the center of attention. I don't have to fight so hard to get my needs met. And I will talk about this very quickly. 3 years ago, and again, I kept talking about Irish Catholic. I hadn't been back to a Catholic church in 100 years. And because my feeling was, why should I say I'm not worthy? And I didn't ask you to do this for me. And I remember having that same feeling growing up. You know, my brothers somehow intuitively could get up and leave from the table, and I'm like, really? Like, what's that about? Why do I have to stay and clean the table when you don't have to? So it was sort of a theme growing up. 3 years, as I said, my wife is very involved in the church. She plays music, very spiritual, and has an amazing sense of grace. And I had gone with her one night, and we're sitting there, and the priest said, "Whatever your fears are, I want you to put them in the basket." And I went, And he said it again. And if you would have said to me, do you have any fears? I would have said, well, no, I have a program. I understand how to work the steps. I understand conceptually my higher power, and I've turned things over to my higher power in the past. And so we went back the next week, and again, it was Father Charlie, and he said, I want you to know that I see everything that you've done, and you're forgiven. And I just sat there, and I just started crying. And I think that was the key, was that all of the shame and all of the fear and all of that self-hatred, and this is after being in the program many years, was all about, I know everything that you think. I know every thought that goes on in your head. And today, you get to start over. The transformation that happened for me, and again, not a religious thing, a spiritual thing. I could have been sitting in any church, right? It was more about a sense of grace. It was that I got to start over. If you asked me, did I need that? I would have said you're crazy. I would have said, no, I understand that I'm okay. But to hear, I know it all. I saw everything. I see it today. I know exactly what you're thinking, and you're forgiven. It means I get to draw a line in the sand every day. I get to start over every day, and I'm completely loved. I turned into a woman that felt so much love and so much compassion for other people. Now, I had many years of program, and right before my 50th birthday, which was 3 years ago, my entire staff at work went to HR and tried to get me fired. Now, that's with many years of program. I could not get past some of these hurdles that I was facing. I could not do it by myself. I had a program, I went to meetings, I had a sponsor, I was still screaming at people. And so I owned that situation. I picked my head up. I said, I have made mistakes. That is not the way that I want to treat people. That is not the way that I want to be treated. I resigned from that job, and I owned it. I owned it. Those were things that I had done. And I looked at it and I said, okay, what do I do about that? Well, if I don't want to drink, I don't sit at a bar. If I don't want to be dysfunctional in an organization, I cannot go to a dysfunctional organization. I just can't do it. So I took almost a year to try to figure out, what is it that I want to do? You know, how do I balance this so that I don't have to fight so hard when I get somewhere? How do I make better choices in my life about what I want to do? And part of that was, don't work in a dysfunctional place. Part of it was, what's this driving force that makes you continually have to make people know that you know what you know? And again, it was low self-esteem. So the circle sort of went around. You know, it sort of came right back at a completely different level. But I was facing the same situation. I was down on my knees again. But let me tell you something. Sitting there, coming from that place with no armor, but with a higher power that is so protective, was the most freeing experience for me. I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed because I didn't have to fight anymore. I had spent 50 years fighting. I didn't have to do it. It was so freeing. I was such a nice person. I'm like, oh, look at this. I'm happy. We have dogs. I know how to be nice to the dogs. Like, truly nice. I had no compassion. Zero compassion. And what a gift. So at 50 years old, my higher power, I should back up and say one more thing. I don't know if I would have completely gotten it when the entire staff went to HR. And picture my boss, I come in and he says, yeah, we need to talk. And then he repeats back to me some of the things that I had said to them. I'm like, And so, you know, I look at that and I say, okay, how do you want to react? And so I owned it. I lost my train of thought for a second, but it was a good point. Let me back up for a second. I'll come back to it. I think the key is for my program now. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. I hurt my back. So my higher power definitely has a sense of humor because he knows I have a sense of humor, and I hurt my back really bad. And if I thought money was important and gave me a sense of worth, I quickly learned that health was much more important than anything else, and that people really didn't care what I did. Because if I wasn't a nice person, none of that mattered. So that was 3 years ago. So I've spent the past 3 years doing a bunch of different things. I'm getting married June 18th to a woman who is definitely a product of my higher power because, I just came from a meeting on couples. And one of the things that I said that I wanted in a relationship when I put the list together was that the person had to actually like me. And this woman actually likes me. And I can tell that because I see the way that she looks at me. And I actually like her. And I like who I am. And I know that I still have a pretty big ego, and my higher power continually reminds me to chill. But this program and the people in the program have said to me, let us love you until you love yourself. And part of the message that we're sending to the folks that are coming to the wedding is, you loved us until we could love ourselves. And if I can share anything with anybody today, it's that don't discount the people that you come in contact with, because I didn't know that the folks on the committee were listening to my tape. And so anytime I start to feel like I don't matter, I look up at my higher power and I thank him for the blessings that he's given me. And the ability to be in this program. So thank you.
Thank you, Diane, so much. So again, let's thank Diane. Thank you. So we'll close the meeting with the suggested Al-Anon closing. In closing, I would like to say that the opinions expressed here were strictly those of the person who gave them. Take what you liked and leave the rest. The things you heard were spoken in confidence and should be treated as confidential. Keep them within the walls of this room and the confines of your mind. A few special words to those of you who haven't been with us long. Whatever your problems, there are those among us who have had them too. If you try to keep an open mind, you will find help. You will come to realize that there is no situation too difficult to be bettered and no unhappiness too great to be lessened. We aren't perfect. The welcome we give you may not show the warmth we have in our hearts for you. After a while, you'll discover that though you may not like all of us, you'll love us in a very special way, the same way we already love you. Talk to each other, reason things out with someone else, but let there be no gossip or criticism of one another. Instead, let the understanding, love, and peace of the program grow in you one day at a time. Will all who care to please join in closing with the Serenity Prayer.